Could warn me how much it hurts to die.
Trust me, real death hurts much, much more.
Not so sure about that.
The release of Cyberpunk 2077 almost seems unreal as gamers have eagerly waited years to cruise around the wonderfully ambitious world of Night City. And while the game is genuinely impressive, I think most of us can agree that perhaps it needed a little more time to bake. If you're new around here, don't forget to like and subscribe. As the channel continues to grow, so does my scheduling, so bear with me as I figure out the best times to release these videos. Thanks. Cyberpunk 2077 is an RPG through and through. With ability scores and a plethora of perks to choose from, it sometimes feels like you're playing the sci-fi version of Skyrim. As you play the game a certain way, you gain experience with the certain skills you use. If you're mainly quick hacking enemies, you'll quickly progress and improve in that field. Doing this, along with improving your appropriate ability score and piling most of your perks in your primary skill, you can become a force to be reckoned with. Most of the perks are really good, offering a new ability or passive bonus. The only one I came across that wasn't as great was the crafting perk that automatically breaks down your junk. While it might be tempting to want to save time, just go in the menu and break them down yourself, because when you come across that pricey junk you want to sell, you can't sell it because it's broken down automatically. The ability scores really lean into how you play the game. They all have their uses. Body and engineering can get you through certain doors, intelligence opens up new hacking locations, and reflexes and cool can often unlock unique conversational topics. It's not all these abilities do, but they do feel distinct and necessary for playing certain builds. The combat feels really rewarding when your build is firing on all cylinders, but it isn't without its missteps. The AI can sometimes be downright unresponsive, and the melee combat often feels a bit janky to play. That said, the gunplay feels good and impactful, and the cyber warfare is incredibly fun to dip into. Hack into a camera and take down enemies before they even know there's a problem. However you want to approach the combat, there does seem to be a way. Stealth can feel a bit bare bones at times, but it does its job. It's especially good if you're quick hacking. The enemy's line of sights all seem reasonable. I hardly came across a moment where they spotted me a mile away. You may not get away with it in every mission, but there were plenty of levels I managed to get through completely undetected. The jumping and climbing surprisingly feels good. I was not expecting this level of freedom in exploration, and it's definitely appreciated. Climbing vending machines and parkouring your way across rooftops, even unlocking the double jump cyber mod feels like it's worth the hefty down payment. The traversal looks and feels fluid when you're vaulting over barricades and plunging through windows. The driving feels like a mixed bag. Sometimes I feel like I have great control, other times I find myself running over civilians. Maybe I'm just terrible at driving, but it does feel very similar to GTA's approach. I didn't have an issue with any of the driving missions though, so I guess I do have at least that going for me. The weapon customization is nice. Adding a scope or muzzle is good and all, but the real beauty behind it all are the cyber mods, which alter or add potent buffs to your playstyle. Some make your guns do only non-lethal, while others can up your crit chance and the like. And with yet another game with crafting and recipes, this system is once again just okay. The amount of resources it takes to craft or upgrade your weapons and gear can seem a bit harsh at times, and generally I found something better over time and didn't worry about it too much. I will say that it does seem odd that you can't separate clothes from their stats. In a futuristic world about expressing yourself, there were plenty of times I wanted to keep the badass clothes I was wearing, but ultimately had to upgrade to something not as appealing to look at. And while we're on the topic of customizing your look, the character creator, while it seems decently expressive, I never did find a way during the game to change your appearance, which kind of felt like a letdown. You see a bunch of people wearing chrome bodies and prosthetic limbs, but other than the cyber enhancements you install, there isn't a more in-depth aesthetic way to customize how your character looks. The UI itself works well most of the time, but can feel a bit jumbled in parts. Searching for stuff in the journal can sometimes be a chore, and when you're selling or breaking down guns, your equipped stuff isn't always first, and you'd have to watch and make sure you don't accidentally get rid of the stuff you're wearing or using. Another issue I had was looting bodies. There were several times it felt finicky to loot weapons and bodies simply because the bodies or other objects overlapped the loot. There were a couple times I had to move a body out of the way just to pick up the weapon. It's not a huge gripe, but it doesn't shout polish. One of my favorite minigames was using the brain dance editor. Go inside pre-recorded videos and use the surroundings to solve problems and mysteries. Break down the videos between visual, audio, and heat signatures, and it'll really feel like you're working a crime scene.
See that? They shot him and he never saw it coming.
There definitely feels like a lot to do around Night City, from helping random strangers with their problems to taking out organized crime operations. Night City will keep you occupied for quite a long time. Exploring the city and doing side quests feels like a must. If you only run through the game's main story, you're really missing out on most of the game. Like in Skyrim and many other open world RPGs, it's imperative to go off the road sometimes and fully discover what the game has to offer. Did anyone else feel like they got too many calls and messages? Because I sure did. Sometimes I'd be in the middle of a mission and I'd get a call to do a different one. And if you're in a conversation with someone else, they will talk over each other. Ugh. Whenever you enter a new area, you're often shot several calls and/or messages detailing new gigs or offering you a brand new car. You also can't ignore calls, which seems like an incredible oversight. There definitely should be a way to call people back later instead of getting some kind of plot dump while you're busy. As funny as some of the bugs are, the more problematic ones can completely ruin your immersion in seconds or cause your character to flatline. From police officers spawning through walls to vehicleception, the shiny coat of polish most gamers thought they were getting just isn't quite there yet. Not before you freak out too much, CD Projekt Red is really good at cleaning up their games after launch. Within a couple of months of patchwork, I really do think the game will be immensely better. That said, as it currently stands at release, it is a bit disappointing to have these issues. The narrative of Cyberpunk is one of CD Projekt Red's crowning achievements. It's a beautifully woven story that gives you just enough player agency to feel like you're in control. And with Keanu Reeves playing the sometimes antagonistic Johnny Silverhand, the plot train takes you on one crazy ride that really never lets up. You start from 3 different origins: Nomad, Street Kid, and Corpo. These 20-minute introductory sessions feel a bit short before you hit the cutscene that each path gets. It does what it's meant to do, but I feel the beginning could have been more fleshed out. However, the amount of times you get a unique dialogue option based on your origin is actually quite impressive.
What you blowing?
Escape. Pure as baby powder.
The main story will roughly take you about 20 to 25 hours to complete. The first 2 acts feel pretty fleshed out with a few main story missions, but Act 3 only has 1, and the game will tell you that you can't do any more side quests once you begin that mission. It doesn't feel like bad pacing, but it did catch me off guard and felt a bit rushed. That said, as I said before, if you're just playing the main story, you're going to miss out on the substance of Night City, and you won't get certain endings because you rushed it. Some of the game's side stories are just as engaging and interesting as the main one. The characters all feel unique and well written, and some of the encounters are just downright entertaining.
Hey you! I gotta get to a Ripper, man! I'll pay you!
The game hints at several philosophical ideals, but if you're looking for anime levels of depth, I'd just stick with Ghost in the Shell. Night City doesn't adopt the what if policy, instead it's more like, why not? Unless you're playing on a high-end PC, the graphics aren't going to wow you. They are really impressive, but I can see the hyper-realistic style not aging well over the years. It reminds me of a futuristic GTA. Trash and graffiti litter the streets, and people come in all shapes, colors, and sizes. There's no doubt that the game feels lived in and ever-moving, which definitely helps me stay immersed in its sprawling city. The types of clothing you can wear generally look pretty good. It's not that hard to feel classy and personalized. The cars also look great. When they aren't disappearing off screens, the wide variety of vehicles fit in perfectly with Night City diverse cultures. The music feels appropriately cyberpunk. From combat to emotional moments, the game's soundtrack delivers with a kick-ass performance. It definitely lends a great hand to the world building and immersion. Nothing felt out of place, and Johnny Silverhand's theme is exceptionally catchy. The UI, beeps, and sound effects are also good and responsive. The gunfire feels punchy, and the parkour jumping grunts aren't distracting. On PC, Cyberpunk 2077 is truly a remarkable game and an amazing experience. However, I did run into enough bugs, game-breaking glitches, and messy, unpolished mechanics that I simply cannot ignore. I am certain all of these will be fixed in the future, but the game is already out right now, and CD Projekt Red decided to ship the game as is. So in its current form, Cyberpunk 2077 gets a 7 out of 10. Thankfully, the core gameplay loop is every RPG lover's dream, and hopefully after a few months I can safely say that this game gets a 9 or even a 10. I've sunk almost 60 hours in already, and I can't wait to jack back in. If you're playing on a PS4 or Xbox One though, I can't recommend the game to you. Both Microsoft and Sony are offering refunds because of the absolute poor performance on the consoles. It literally looks like a different game altogether. Now as a side note, none of this is the devs' fault. Game devs work their asses off to get games to look and play good, but it's the management and leadership that force unnecessary crunch and unreasonable deadlines. So all of you fuckwads sending death threats and harassing emails to game developers, go fuck yourself. It's just a game. You all may be sad because of delays or performance issues, but that's never a reason to incite violence. I hope you all enjoyed the review. Don't forget to slam that like button and subscribe if you're not already a member. And if you played Cyberpunk 2077, let me know your thoughts down below. And as always, this is Game Ghost. Happy gaming.